I'm at a gentleman called Steve's house in Hertfordshire, and Steve has an acre garden and is a gentleman who has lived in Japan for, I think I'm correct in saying, 7 years. Would that be right, Steve?
Yeah.
And Steve developed a passion for Japanese gardens whilst he was in Japan, and he has an enclosed Japanese garden that we're about to go and see. This is not his Japanese garden pond, and we're going to go and have a look and take you around the plants, and Steve is also going to give you an indication of what sort of plants he is growing, and shrubs and trees and what have you, what survives, what doesn't survive, what to do and what not to do when you're designing your own garden. He's got some great advice for you. Here we go. Steve, it's autumn time. What is this particular tree here? Because obviously it's just started to lose its leaves, but the colour is so vivid.
It's one of the Acer garnets. I'm not sure which one it is, to be honest.
It's an Acer garnet.
Garnet.
Yeah.
Acer palmatum.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And so is this one, which is very similar.
Here's another one, very similar indeed. We just missed it by about a week or so, didn't we, of catching it in full bloom. This is right by one of the, or the gate to your garden. This is Acer cereus. Yes, cereus.
It turns a beautiful colour well, in another week's time. It will be absolutely spectacular.
So does it go from lighter to darker throughout the year?
No, it's actually this. It's sort of, yes, it does. It's a limey colour initially, and then it goes dark green, and then in the autumn it starts turning yellowy and then bronzy colour.
Now this is a real treat, Steve. This is the dry part of your garden, and the people watching this video will be able to hear the running water, and they're going to see the koi in a minute. Just tell me a little bit about when you went to Japan, how you became struck with Japanese gardens and what you learned from living in Japan.
Well, I think the initial thing that struck me was the difference. The Japanese gardens were so different to anything I had seen in Europe, and I think very peaceful, and the sound of running water and the koi and so on. So it was a fascinating experience for me, having walked into a garden and just really been
blown away. Yes. It happened to me in Oregon, in Portland, and you'll know that that is one of the world's finest Japanese gardens outside of Japan, and that's where my interest came from it.
That's right, and then little by little you see the different features, and I started seeing them thinking, well, I like this feature, I like that feature, and then I tried to incorporate a lot of features that I like. I mean, the stones sticking out from the ground.
Well, tell us about these stones. Are they granite?
No, they're all different. Some of them are granite, but the majority of them are quartz stone, quartzite or quartz, with a few large pieces of slate.
Okay.
In amongst them, but these are called Babbling Stones.
Yes.
Which form the path. The idea of.
Where did you locate them from? A local sort of person?
I located them from a place in near the Dartford Tunnel. Which actually didn't specialise in Japanese
just
stones.
to the east of London, for people who don't know.
But the thing is that these stones would have been crushed or used for roadworks and so on, and I went in there and I couldn't believe they had so many stones, beautiful stones, and I did a bulk purchase. I think the total was 27 tons.
Wow. And so this is your Karansui area.
That's right.
I mean, we call this garden, and we're going to show you a lot more of it in just a moment. It's a pond viewing garden. That would be correct, wouldn't it, Steve?
It would be correct.
Now, for people who are watching this video now, and they're going to be inspired by just the beautiful bits that they've seen so far, and there's more to come. When you decided to build a Japanese garden, you did encounter some problems that I think it would be very useful if you could share them with people who are thinking of building their own garden, because they can get caught out and it can become very expensive.
It can do. I think initially, obviously, the main problem was building the pond. And obviously it's a concrete structure, which is fair enough. But the big problem comes in, for example, if you look at the piping there, which is extremely ugly. But I didn't think about that, and nobody pointed it out to me until after I had built it. I.e., what do you do with the inlet and outlet pipes that are sort of taking the water to be filtered? I mean, the water is, I managed after a couple of years of trying to survive with water that was always dirty, I've managed to actually find a solution for clean water, and that
is
was
clear.
It is very, very clear now.
Now the problem is herons, isn't it? And that is why you've got the wires going across.
Yes.
It stops the herons getting in because they're very forceful, not very pleasant birds.
That's right.
And they wouldn't have the bigger ones, but they would certainly have smaller ones,
and
wouldn't
they have in the past. They've taken a lot of the smaller ones, so I've had to resort to that, which doesn't look very attractive, but it does work. Unfortunately, as I say, I'm hoping once the koi sort of all get to a decent size, I can get rid of the wire, and hopefully it will be quite attractive.
I'll just show the folks here, just literally round the back where all, I don't know if you can see it there, this is where all Steve's pumps and filters are.
And this is a glass bead filter here.
Right.
Which is absolutely superb.
A glass bead filter.
This is absolutely superb, because that was the original filter, which has got 8 sponges in it.
Yes.
It works, but
took forever to do.
It takes forever to clean, and in the summer months you have to do it once a week to clean all the sponges. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to clean them properly. But with this glass bead filter, you see a black handle there. All you do is just go through a process. It takes 15 minutes. The glass beads are actually cleaned inside, and that's where the bacteria and so on.
It is amazing. You know, it's not too noisy, but people have to understand if they want a pond, this is the sort of stuff they're going to need in it, and it costs money. Roughly, what sort of in British pounds are we talking about?
We're talking about total cost of between £1,500 and £2,000.
So about $3,500 US, something like that.
Yes.
I see that you've got some very healthy bamboo here, Steve.
Yes, unfortunately not very well looked after. Because the thing with bamboo is you have to cut. If we go and this is the yellow bamboo, but if you look at the
we'll go around the other side. Excuse me.
By the way, my favourite.
Tell us about this one.
Acer palmatum shindishoto, which turns.
Why is it your favourite?
Because it has different colours throughout the year. In the spring, it has beautiful, beautiful bronze colours. And then in the summer, and as you approach autumn, it changes colour at different angles. Unfortunately, you're not seeing it at its peak, but you can see what is starting to change.
Yes. I'll just come down and film that. There we go.
It's a multicoloured leaf acer in the autumn. It absolutely is superb.
How important was it for you with your Japanese garden to have as many sort of Japanese plants and shrubs within the garden itself, bearing in mind that we're in a northern European climate? It's not the easiest thing to do, is it?
Well, the climate actually is not a problem for Japanese plants.
Similar climate, isn't it?
It is very similar problem. I mean, the acers are hardly down to about, I mean, they grow in Hokkaido, which gets down to minus 30 degrees there.
Yes.
So the climate is not a problem. The problem is soil. I have a problem with my soil because I have very sandy soil, which is very dry. So keeping the soil moist, especially in summer, is not an easy thing. This one here is another example of an acer garnet there, and the idea is in time it will grow bigger and provide shelter or shade for the fish to swim under as it gets bigger and goes across.
Do you ever, your gravel over there, do you ever rake that?
Yes, again, not as often as I should.
No.
But I do rake it.
It looks so effective, doesn't it?
It does. It looks beautiful.
Okay, we're taking a wander through the garden now. What are we looking at now, Steve?
Bamboo.
Bamboo, here we go.
A bad example of how it shouldn't be.
Okay.
The idea is all the green leaves should be taken down to a height of about 2.5 to 3 foot.
Right.
And the reason behind that is then it shows off the black stems.
Yes.
And what you should do also is take out all the thin stems, like this one, for example, here. So they should be cut at the base.
Right.
Because if they're thinned out on an annual basis, then what will happen is the healthier stems or the newer stems will get thicker and thicker. So eventually you will get very, very thick bamboo.
Yeah. What about the pruning of your trees? Did you teach that yourself or learn from somebody?
No, I mean, again, when I was in Japan, I asked people, and there's an example of a sad acer there. It actually died.
It's coming back to life.
And it's come back to life.
Yes.
So I'm hopeful it might survive. It doesn't look ideal at the moment, but when I cut the dead branches, I'm hoping that it will look quite attractive.
What is the old Japanese saying that you have to prune from the inside because otherwise it doesn't see the sun?
That's correct, absolutely right. So
yes.
I'm not
and that expert. Is a good rule of thumb for people, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I'm not an expert on the pruning, but generally speaking, if you do it from the inside, but also on the acers, what I do is I tend to, again, I haven't, unfortunately, they've been neglected for the last couple of years or so, but the idea is to cut all the the branches going on the underside
Yes.
of the trees.
So they sort of mushroom up and then down.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
That's-
That acer there is called senkaku. And
That's that one there.
It's a lovely yellow color in the autumn, but in winter the branches go red. So it's even when
You can see the beginnings now,
that's
can't
right.
you, on
So
the end?
even with no leaves on it, the branches are very attractive
Yeah.
red color.
How long did it take you to design, get it built to your satisfaction,
Well, it was
this garden?
25 years in the planning and 2
Yeah.
years in the building.
And people can literally sit down. I always say to people who come to my websites, get some knowledge,
Yeah.
then you know what you're dealing with. Sit down with a piece of paper. Use a scale of 1 inch to a foot if you want, or.
Absolutely, and visit as many Japanese gardens
Exactly.
as you can. But the most important thing, I think, is look at the planting. Is fairly straightforward. The pond is straightforward. But when you're building and designing the thing, look at the distance between your gates and the water. Bear in mind that people in a very small garden, if you have a very small space, you might slip and fall in the pond. So think of safety and things like that. But in designing the pond, always think of the water, where your inlet and outlet pipes are going to go, where your pumps are going to go. For example, this design here, unfortunately, again, this is not particularly attractive, but it's to stop the heron.
Yes.
But what we discovered is that area there is a dead spot. So a lot of the debris would go over there.
Yes.
And that area was always covered in algae. So what we had to do is put another pump there
Right.
to get the circulation going.
Yes.
So that wasn't thought of earlier because in the design nobody actually advised me as what would happen.
Yeah.
So although one pump is enough, you need to think about if you design anything like this, that if you have any dead ends like that, you need to pump water from that to the filter.
Tell me about this lantern here. It's particularly striking, that one. Where does it come from? Obviously Japan.
That has come from Japan, along with a few others. It's not my favourite actually is over here. I mean, this is a granite one. But this, I'm not sure of the stone. But this is a very common stone in Japan. It's not granite, but that's absolutely beautiful. So I think that is a lot more attractive in many ways. And
Looks like a spaceship on the top, doesn't
yes,
it?
it does.
But I know what you mean. And it's lovely. And you've got another one here.
There's a smaller one there,
Yes.
yes. Again, all these came from Japan.
Yes. This is 100% authentic. What would you say to people who are thinking of, they've got a space at home, they're thinking of having a Japanese garden? Would you agree with me? I mean, I've written many times on this that we know, you and I know, that this is a form of gardening. It's a work of art, and there are people that do take it, understandably and quite rightly, very, very seriously. But if you like the idea of an oriental garden, you can combine on a much smaller scale, like at Kew Gardens in London, they've got 3 or 4 Japanese gardens in one.
Right,
you could take the best bits that you like.
In the end,
it's free will, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think if you want to build an authentic Japanese garden, well, that's fine. But in the end, you have to build something that you like. And if it's not authentic, if you're enjoying it and it looks good, that's the main thing. I mean, this Japanese, I tried to be authentic, but where I wanted to do things that weren't, it didn't bother me.
No.
Because in the end, it's something that I have to live with. It's a labour of love, and I enjoy
Exactly.
being in this garden. It's come out building it during the building process. I didn't really know what the outcome would be, and obviously there was a lot of nervousness. A project of this size. I mean, it took 2 years to build.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's the point. They take time.
They do take time.
And they also take an awful lot of looking after. So if you think you're just going to build one and it's going to be happy ever after, forget
That's right.
about it.
Yes.
You've got to take care of it.
You need to take care of it. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's relatively easy to maintain. I mean, all you need is if I come out here 2 or 3 hours a week, that will be sufficient probably. But in the end, you've got to be happy with it, and it's something that you must enjoy. So I think authenticity is something. Well, if you are into that sort of thing, that's fine. But
Absolutely.
it's not essential.
Now, our water feature here, obviously, is the pond, but we have one of these.
That's right, and that's a granite piece there. But unfortunately, with these things again, because they're made of bamboo to look authentic,
Yes.
what you discover is that within 2 or 3 months, it develops cracks, like this one here,
Yes.
which stop it working. So what I've done is I've cheated slightly, so there's a plastic tube here which carries the water, But on these, it's actually, I would suggest you buy a plastic bamboo. That they can look very authentic,
yes,
but they won't crack like this, which stops them working. That has now stopped working, and I have to spend time fixing it.
What were the major problems, if you could outline, say, your top 3 problems when you're building a Japanese garden, and then we'll come on to the top 3 positives?
Well, I think if I can show you, if you're having this built, don't listen to builders.
Hang on, I'll just get a little closer because I want them to hear this. Don't listen to builders
who will tell you that they know how to point, and you end up with this sort of pointing.
Yes, not very good.
No, and this is, as I say, it's 8 years old, but it's cracking so badly now I have to redo the pointing on this.
Yes.
But if I can give you an example of pointing which I did over here.
Now we're going to see some of Steve's pointing that is proper pointing. Time consuming, is it, Steve?
This takes forever, but this is a mixture of sharp sand,
yes,
cement and very small pea shingle, so effectively you're pointing using concrete.
Who needs a builder?
And it's
well, you can do it yourself.
3 parts of cement to the rest of the mixture, so it's an extremely strong mix.
So you can power wash that.
You can power wash that, and this will probably be still standing when the rest of the thing has fallen apart.
Yes. Okay. What about other problems?
Well, other problems. I mean, for example, this rock here. I mean, this is
it's so big I can't get it all in one frame shot. I'm going down it now.
Under 3 tons.
Wow.
And we had to have a JCB digger to initially obviously dig a hole for it and to lift it and move it about. And obviously while you are moving it, it's very difficult to manoeuvre.
Yes. So think how big you want your stones. And that's the beauty of Zen garden. You can have very small stones.
You can do.
If it's a small area or indoors.
That's it. It all depends on the size, and I think I understand nowadays you can actually get polystyrene stones. I'm not sure I'd go.
Even I wouldn't go that far. No. And what about something else? Planning where you're going to put your plants and your trees and your shrubs and your bushes.
That is very important, and I'll show you an example of a mistake. I don't know the name of that plant, but somebody suggested to me that it's a very attractive plant, but I was told that it would grow up to 3 foot in height, which is that plant there.
Yes.
Now, it's very attractive.
Well, so as we look at it, we're looking...
It's that green thing there, that coniferous thing there.
It looks like a sort of mangled bit of a Christmas tree or something.
That's right. As I say, it is attractive, but it's not to be... It wasn't meant to be that high.
No.
So I was advised by a so-called expert that it would be about 3 to 4 foot high. And
well, it looks about 8 or 9 to me.
Well, I think a lot more than that.
Yeah, maybe.
Closer to 12.
You know.
Don't forget you're about 4 foot above it. So it's about 10 to 12 foot high. So yes, I think about plants, and size of the plant is very, very important.
Yes.
I mean, if you want things like azaleas and so on, you can plant them fairly close to the pond because they're quite small.
Yes.
This plant here is called Nandina Domestica, which is a heavenly bamboo. Yes, and that's very, very attractive because it has berries, it has flowers on it, so it has a mixture of things. And
where would you get these in the United Kingdom?
I think most nurseries will stock most of these plants. Obviously, you need to get a good nursery, but choose your plants carefully and look at the ultimate size of the plants, because that will make a huge difference.
What sort of difference, on a sort of aesthetic level, has this garden made to your life? It's a wonderfully calm place. You can hear the water running, you can watch the fish, you can look at nature as it's meant to be in a Japanese garden. It must be very de-stressing, I would have thought. You've got a table here, you must have your dinner here.
This is not a Japanese table,
no, I know.
As you can see. I mean, the one thing I would sort of not... go down to is sort of squatting to have our meals on the floor. So I mean, I think my knees wouldn't take it.
But it is a benefit, isn't it? It's a place to de-stress.
It is. I mean, we sit out here in summer, in lunchtimes, evenings, whatever it is, and sometimes sort of at the end of the day I'll come in here and sit down with a bottle of beer and just sit and have a drink and listen to the running water. And again, we're lucky to have very, very good bird life around here.
Yes. Exactly.
We get that as well.
You see, a Japanese garden is for life, not just for Christmas.
Absolutely.
As we say.
But this is an interesting point here. I mean, I don't know if you. Well,
don't worry about those.
But this is a bamboo screen, which has got a metal wire. which actually holds it together.
Yes.
So when we built this, I wanted to close the one side of it. So I think that's sort of an interesting feature. And again, this stuff is easy to get and relatively cheap.
Yes.
So it can be
it has
rolled
the
down.
feel of a minku, you know, a Japanese minku in
it
here.
does, it does.
And it's such. I must say, it's a wonderful garden, Steve. And you know, the enjoyment you get out of it and the effort that you put into it is for everyone to see.
Right,
And
it's definitely worth it, as I say. If you want to build one, I mean, go for it. But look, it's the practical things rather than the end result. The end result, I think, is probably relatively easy to achieve.
yes.
The practical issues of how to get there are very important to consider from the beginning.
What's your favourite Japanese garden style? Would it be the dry style, or would it be a strolling garden?
No, I think the strolling garden would be my favourite style. The dry
Yes.
Zen gardens, and I mean, I enjoy looking.
You,
at
well,
them.
you've embraced it here, so we
No,
can
I've
see.
embraced it here, but
Yes.
to me the strolling idea is great.
A different view from wherever you stop.
Different
They're
view,
extraordinary.
and
aren't
obviously in the end it's all got to be around running water and the pond. I think that's got to be the central piece
Yes.
of any garden.
they? And what about Japan itself when you were there? Where were the best gardens, do you think?
Oh, Kyoto.
Yes,
absolutely.
it's the spiritual home,
Yes,
isn't it?
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, there are so many gardens.
And which ones would be your favourites?
Oh, I'm trying to think of the name. The Golden Temple.
Yes, Roanji.
Roanji.
Yeah.
So there were so many. I mean, I must have visited about 70 or 80 in the 7 years we were there. And I could spend really another 7 years just going back and visiting Japanese gardens. Absolutely beautiful. Incredible.
Well, they're spiritual places. They are living works of art. And in rural England,
That's it.
you can get something like this.
Yeah.
So hopefully this has inspired the people watching it. You've mentioned so many of the things and the varieties of plants and trees that are in here. We've spoken about the gravel, we've spoken about the rocks, the lanterns, we've spoken about what not to do with pointing, we've spoken about bamboo, we've looked at the koi. Some people want a pond, other people don't, Steve.
That's right, yes.
We've had a thorough tour, and I'm just trying to give a sense of perspective to the viewers. I would say that it's about 45 foot wide and about 35 or 40 foot long. Would that be about right?
It probably sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, I might make a builder yet. No.
One thing actually is,
Yes.
I mean, you can actually add non-Japanese features because this is a liquid amber, which is, as far as I'm aware, not necessarily Japanese.
No. But it fits it beautifully, and that's what people have to remember. Choose indigenous things
That's right.
that
Because
go
yes.
with the climate where you live. If you're watching this in Arizona, you're not going to be able to grow acers very well unless you're going to water them an awful lot.
That's right, yeah.
So, no, it's absolutely marvellous, and I thank you very, very much, Steve,
pleasure.
for letting us come into your world for this
My
afternoon.
pleasure. This doesn't fit in there. That was a mistake.
No, that's not Japanese,
No.
but does a very nice burger. Okay, Steve, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Russ.